All right, now
Now
they
here.
can hear us.
Hello! Welcome to the office. Welcome to Studio 2. Studio 1's the loft, by the way. I made that up. This is Studio 2.
It's a lot like the loft, but different, an office-ier. But yeah, welcome to the live stream. Welcome to the terrible part of the show that the listeners don't have to experience, but now you get to.
You're welcome.
You are welcome.
All right, so we're going to do the podcast discovery show first, and then we're going to take a tiny little break, maybe like 5 minutes, to get everything together for the Todds, and then we're going to do that. The cool thing about watching the live stream or the video is you get it way before it releases in podcast form. So like we're recording this right now, and this won't go out on podcast for like 2 to 3 weeks now.
Yeah.
What we're going to record today. Are you recording as well?
Mm-hmm.
All right, cool.
Yep, we're at 9 minutes.
Okay. All right, well then, let's jump in. Let's get 10 seconds of silence. Let me hit the record button on this thing. I purposefully did that so that would get picked up so I could noise reduce it.
Sure, okay.
All right, let's do this. Hello and welcome to the Podcast Discovery Show, the podcast about other podcasts. It's like a book club, but instead of talking about books, we're going to talk about podcasts. I'm Kirk.
And I am Zach.
And this week we are talking about the show Dexplanations, specifically the episode about space law. And also, honorable mention, the episode about farts.
And just the listeners won't be able to see this, but if you go check on YouTube, you can. This part, actually no, where we have it. Okay, here's the part that's about the episode that was recommended by Kirk. This part, this whole page, and no, just this whole page is about the farts episode. So even though...
Okay, look, here. This is what happened. What had happened was the episode about farts was great, but I felt like there wasn't quite as good mass appeal about it. There might be some people, some listeners in our target demographic that might be a little bit squeamish to hear a lot about farts. But there was some very interesting facts about it. And also, if we were to do the whole episode on farts, we might just giggle the entire time.
there is a chance that it wouldn't be a thought-provoking discussion. It would be a discussion, though. No, but we're going to talk a little bit about that episode, too, because Kirk loved it. He loved it.
I did.
There's a lot of notes here. We're going to get into it.
So I'm just going to shotgun some facts that I learned from this episode. Well, let me explain what the show is.
Yeah.
The show is...
Don't start talking about farts yet.
I got too excited.
Hold on just a little bit.
I'm sorry. It's a show where two friends, Dexter and David, and Dexter will pick a subject and he will do a bunch of research about it, and then he'll explain it to his friend David. It's very simple concept, but it's very fun to listen to.
Yeah.
It's a great indie show to learn a lot of different random stuff.
Yeah.
I've seen things about, like, they talk about catnip. That was really interesting.
Yeah.
Because it only works on cats, and I learned that from this show. And why it only works on cats and stuff. Listen to that episode. I saw one about space debris. There was one about... I listened to about 7 different episodes. I can't remember all of them now. I did listen to one about space debris, which is kind of stemming off of this one. I listened about the one on farts. I listened to the one about space law, which is the one we're talking about today. And but it's a great show, simple concept, and it's a fun listen.
Yeah, I mean, it's a simple concept, but it's also a winning concept, because as soon as I feel like we've talked about so many podcasts where what they do is they combine learning something, exploring a new topic, with being generally entertaining and conversational. And that's what these guys do. It's a really fun show to listen to. It does feel like you're listening to just two random people talking about something. You're like, oh, okay, I'm gonna eavesdrop on this conversation a little bit. But they also do come at it from an understanding point of view. Like they're clearly pretty smart guys, and they do understand the topics they're talking about. So you get to like learn something while it's fun. And I haven't listened to the fart episode, so
I made you listen to a little bit of it. But...
Yeah, no, we have a segment of that episode that we will talk about. And also all of these notes, we're going to go through some of them, but it's a really fun show to listen to. It sounds great, audio quality is great. The entire premise is funny and simple, but very well executed.
And like I said, I've listened to a bunch of episodes, and I've listened to enough that they talk about where they record, but I haven't listened to all of them to where I've gotten the context. But apparently, they record in a rabbit pen.
In a rabbit pen.
Yeah, so that's why they call it Rabbit Pen Studios, because they're recording in a rabbit pen. I want to know more about the context, so I want to message them probably on Twitter and be like, I need the context to why you're recording in a rabbit pen. Why is there a rabbit pen? Do you have a job that has to do with rabbits?
I mean, I'm assuming they have rabbits, maybe? I don't know. We'll find out afterwards, and we'll let you know. We'll let you know what we figure out.
So let's jump into my honorable mention of the episode about farts. Quick facts, real quick about farts. The study of farts, which did you know that there was a study of farts?
I did not. I thought that was just like your life. It was just a life passion.
I mean, most people that study farts, probably that's their life passion. But it's called flatology, is the study of farts. Flatophobia? Flatophobia is the fear of farts. This one blew my mind.
I hate that it's in cups.
The average person produces 2 to 6.5 cups of fart per day.
Shouldn't it be in like non-liquid volume? That's terrible. Like liquid volume, I'm just not a fan of that.
Another fact that blew my mind from that episode: the oldest joke ever found, which is an old Sumerian joke, basically the oldest joke ever found written, was about farts.
Did they say the joke?
Yeah, it wasn't funny.
Oh, okay. So it lost in translation.
A wife farting in her husband's lap or something weird like that. I mean, yeah.
That's okay.
Another crazy fact, because everyone's like, "Oh, cows fart and it's turning all this CO2 is starting greenhouse gas." Did you know that termites release more methane than any other creature?
No.
Yeah.
So termites are the problem.
Termites are the problem. Kill all the termites and we won't have global warming.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm sure that's the solution.
And I guarantee part of their role in like the ecosystem is they
it's
get fallen
a very
trees.
big role.
Yeah, I'm sure it's important, but like, yeah, they also eat your house.
So what it is this was my favorite. I'll I guess move this one up to the top. My favorite fact is farts are basically your microorganisms in your colon breaking down nutrients more effectively. So
I was waiting for this.
If you've got lots of farts, it means that you got a healthier stomach. So from now on, when someone makes fun of me for farting, I'll be like, "Hey, I'm sorry, I'm healthier than you."
He acts like I'm making fun of him for it. Just now, every time he farts, he's like, "Oh, I'm so healthy. My stomach is so healthy." It's like, thank you, man. I'm glad to hear you're doing well.
And then, so the thing that I made Zach listen to, is about this guy. His name was Lepido Main. Lepido Main. You say it together, it sounds right. The Fartiste. And you think I'm making this up. You think that this is some like joke name, but no. This was a real person in France. And he...
Yeah, just go.
How do you even explain the things that he was able to do?
Okay, because they started the story with how he discovered his very special talent that would end up making him a ludicrous amount of money. Like,
who would have thought?
In a ridiculous amount.
I'm in the wrong business.
I mean, the way he discovered this, it's like a superhero origin story, but terrible. Like, because I think they say he was just swimming.
Yeah.
Right? And he just like realized that he could not only put things out, but draw things in.
Yeah.
Is a way to say it.
So he was very creative in the fact that he was able to use this quote unquote talent to start a career. He started doing stage shows that had to do with farting. But what is crazy about the story, I mean, that's funny enough. Okay, goofy, ha ha, fart. But he got to the point where he was performing at the Moulin Rouge, and at that point, and at one time or another, he was the highest paid live performer in all of France.
$100,000
per
a
show.
day. Like, and okay, they were talking about this. And so, like, honestly, it feels disturbing to even say some of the stuff they were saying that, like, he could do.
This is the reason that I didn't do the whole episode.
I get it.
Don't talk about the disturbing stuff.
No, it's not disturbing, but they said that, like, okay, he could blow out a candle from across the room. And I was like, I'm never going to that guy's birthday party. Like, I will not eat that cake. That's disgusting. After all of this, apparently he retired.
No, my favorite is that he could play an ocarina with his fart gas.
That ocarina spelling is something. Like, you played Ocarina of Time. I just wanted to see how you spelled it. I think it's O-C.
I don't know.
But so after all of this, he retired back to his normal life of being a baker. And they said still, he would play a harmonica.
Because he was famous. So people go to get their bread, they're like, oh, you're the fart guy.
But so much of this, I don't want to have in my brain him playing a harmonica. Like, it's all bad. It's all bad, but ridiculous. Like, it is the worst superhero of all time, maybe.
Now, if Dexplanations, Dexter, if you guys ever listen to this episode, I will say that and the reason it was an honorable mention is because it's changed my life now. Even this morning, I woke up and I did what most people do when they wake up. I farted. And my son was in the room and he's like, Daddy, you're gross. And I'm like, no, son.
I'm healthy.
I'm a fartiste.
Oh, man. Yeah, so, I mean, if you guys are listening to this, yes, you have enabled Kirk in a way that he was not before. If he thought he was empowered before, he was not. Now he is. He's living his best life now because of the farts episode of Dexplanations.
You're welcome, and I'm sorry. So, this week's episode of the Podcast Discovery Show is brought to you by the Enchanted Ears podcast. It's a podcast hosted by a husband and wife duo, Angela and Joe. I've listened to a few episodes. They're big Disney fans, just like me.
Did you guys know that Kirk likes Disney?
I like Disney. I'm going to Disney tomorrow.
I don't know if anybody's ever heard that, but he does. He really likes it.
So they're big Disney fans, so much so that they play Disney music at their wedding. And that's pretty hardcore right there, man.
What song?
Can You Feel the Love Tonight? Which it's an Elton John song. It's a very good song. It's a good song.
It's Elton John. It's a great song.
So every Monday, Angela and Joe talk about the latest Disney parks news. They talk about Disney movies, and they do deep dive discussions into trip planning discussions. I always like trip planning stuff for Disney things, like going to the resorts and stuff like that. So planning the food and the things you're going to cook. Anyway, I'm getting into it.
So it's meticulously planned?
Mm-hmm.
All of it?
It has to be. Sure. You got to make all these reservations. You're not going to make it in.
Okay, yeah, that's true. It is.
One of my favorite things that I've listened to them doing is they had an episode where they played theme park music, and they played like a game. They played theme park music, and you had to guess what ride it was for.
Okay.
And I'm not going to lie, I think I got every single answer right.
Yeah, I'm not surprised.
So I don't know if that means that I've got a problem or if I should be proud of it. But either way.
Pick one.
If you're a Disney fan at all, go give the Enchanted Ears podcast a listen. It's a fun show. It's family friendly. And you'll learn a lot about Disney. Thank you guys for supporting the show. And so that brings us into the discussion, real discussion.
Of the actual recommendation.
For my recommendation, which was the space law. And it's as far opposite of the fart discussion as you can be.
It really is. It is a different world entirely.
Because when you come right down to it, it's basically a legal document that we're talking about here.
And I mean, it's a legal document from the late 60s. So it's dated in a way. You know, there's a lot of celestial beings talk, or like celestial objects, I think is what they called it.
Yeah.
So they were ahead of their time, though. I'll say that. Because essentially there was this huge treaty called the Outer Space Treaty, and I think that people had to sign it. You know, I think it was one of the things that the country would sign it and say that they were going to abide by the rules set forth here. And they did cover, I think, all of it, because it's not a very long document.
Yeah, 17 articles. I think they said like the same premise article or same premise treaty for like the sea was hundreds of articles, and the space one is 17. So it's much shorter. In fact, they talked about how like the verbiage is a lot more vague. It's very vague, and also it's almost like a copy and paste of the Antarctic Treaty for like Antarctica, which
Sure.
I never really thought about that. How it's like, who owns that? And that's another
Everybody.
discussion.
Everybody.
Because that's an interesting discussion to talk about as well, as Antarctica and
Which
stuff like that.
it is. You do wonder how they managed to get everyone on board for that. That feels like something someone would be like, that's mine now.
This be mine.
Yeah, that you would think.
But then you're like, but why?
Positioning is it. That's the only reason.
Yeah, I guess.
But other than that, it is one of those things that you like. I don't know. It seems crazy that they were able to do that, to get everybody to agree to it. And space is kind of the same thing. I'm sure a lot of these countries currently regret saying they. Well, I think they also would actively ignore if push came to shove.
Yeah, I mean, we will talk later on about how China did essentially.
Yeah, and I mean, wouldn't the proposed space force that's like currently proposed be iffy-ish? So like
Probably.
it would be something that's borderline, and I mean, I think that it's supposed to be like a line in the Air Force. It's not like its own thing, and they're not going to just live in space or anything like that. But it is kind of militarizing a space that's supposed to be like neutral. So we will see.
It would probably be definitely a discussion done about.
We will see this treaty being tested more in our lifetime than anywhere near when they were doing this.
Oh yeah, for sure. And they go into a lot of depth about each article. I think they basically read and talk about the first like 13 or something, because then the last few are just kind of legal stuff about upholding the other ones they just talked about.
Yeah,
it's a legal document. So,
but they walk you through.
Yeah.
The whole thing. They take you through each step and how the logic is playing out. You know, why this is in here and what's the potential consequences and everything like that. And then also some of the times, people do break the treaty.
One of the main ones, and this was very important, specifically in the time when this was written, was it was trying to prevent nukes from being placed into space.
Yeah, because
that's
that's
a very good idea.
Yeah, this Cold War era.
Yeah.
That's how you say it.
So that was one of the main things, was to try to keep those kind of weapons from being able to, basically weaponizing space.
And I did like that they mentioned it wasn't about the weapon. It wasn't about the weapon, but it was something that to do any kind of space travel, nuclear travel is one of the best options because space is already irradiated to the point where it doesn't matter. It really just, we don't want to trap it inside our atmosphere. So it was kind of an interesting distinction I'd never thought about before, where it's like, you don't want...
And this is the kind of stuff that kind of brought out that they're smart dudes, They were seeing angles to the discussion that I hadn't thought about until they mentioned it like that.
Yeah, and so it is interesting to think about. We don't want anybody having just missiles able to shoot from space, but at the same time, if you were to have any kind of anything up there, then they can shoot from space. And that's one of the things that I thought was super interesting about this, is they talked about what they call it, kinetic projectiles.
Yeah, kinetic bombardment.
So I looked this up.
To break it down to very dumb terms, like for people like me, things go real fast, go boom. If you throw something, if something's going fast enough, no matter what it is, it's gonna make a big explosion.
No, but here's the thing. They did this because literally the Outer Space Treaty that we're talking about, no nuclear missiles or anything like that, no biological weapons, and no chemical weapons. Guess what's not any of that? A huge iron telephone pole. That was the thought, I think. It's a loophole.
Yeah.
So there was a couple different, and I think this was Cold War too. All of this, the craziness of the space race during the Cold War, if you've never checked it out a little bit, it is just nonstop craziness. And the amount of money that was spent, it's just insane. But they had a project called Project Thor. And this has had a bunch of different names. It's Project Thor. They've called it I think they called it like the rod of God, or like the finger of God. Like it was one of those things where, yeah, rods from God was the name of it. And so basically they would take a bundle of telephone-sized iron poles and they would put them on a satellite, and then they would strategically drop them to Earth. And it hits terminal velocity.
Now this is proposed. This never actually happened,
I
correct?
don't think they ever actually tested it.
This was like a
it was something
proposal.
that they tried. They tried to do it, but they did test these things. So they started testing it. So they could reach 500 miles per hour and go through 9 inches of concrete from 3,000 feet.
Which I don't know if you know the answer to this. I don't. How high is space?
It's more than that.
Okay.
It's farther than that. No, but what I'm saying is that's not very far. That's half a mile up.
Oh yeah, I mean 3,000 feet. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, planes go way higher than that.
Oh yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's serious from there.
Ooh.
When they tested this, and from a few thousand feet, they would drop a 20-foot pole, and it was a foot in diameter, tungsten rods, and they dropped it from orbit, and it reached 10 times the speed of sound. This thing could go hundreds of feet into the earth. It could destroy bunkers, underground sites, whatever else. And the explosion from literally just kinetic energy, not a bomb, not any kind of chemical, nothing, just literally a piece of metal hitting the earth so hard that it is the same impact of a ground penetrating nuclear weapon, but with no nuclear fallout.
I'm not gonna lie, it's probably way better than a nuke.
But they just casually drop. They just casually drop that this is a thing, and it's my mind is blown right now.
No, when they mentioned that, I was like, "What? That was ever a thing?" And it was a proposed thing. And how much you want to get? How much you want to bet that that's probably a thing somewhere? So some country has that. No one knows about it.
Yeah, I mean, it would be impossible
it's
to tell.
just a radio satellite.
Because wasn't that their premise? Is you wouldn't be able to see it from space. You wouldn't be able to know that it was a weapon because it would literally just be metal.
Look like a satellite.
Yeah, it looked like just metal.
A satellite with some extra pieces that could fall off strategically.
But yeah, it's insane. But it's another one of those things where they just kind of casually drop that this is happening, and my mind was racing. You know, this whole time that it's definitely something that this show is a really fun thing to listen to because it gets your mind running about something that you weren't really thinking about before.
And something else about this whole treaty, and I do like this part of it, and I think that's partially with the Antarctic thing as well, is it focused on kind of global coming together for the sake of scientific discovery.
Yeah,
I really like that.
There's a lot of wording in there about even they even have something where your economic status does not change any of this. When we do things in space, we do it for mankind, the whole planet, every single person.
I loved that. And it's kind of, I mean, this treaty is kind of, and they talked about it a lot of times in this episode, it has kind of paved the way for the ISS, the space station.
And it has been a model of inter-country cooperation the whole time. Yeah. The whole time. So that is a really cool thing about it. But I mean, it starts to make a lot of sense. And I think a lot of astronauts talk about, as soon as you're outside of the entirety of humanity, you start to get a sense of how ridiculous it is that there's constant infighting, because literally we're on one rock in the universe.
Borders. You don't see the borders anymore. It's not like a map, It's You don't see the war. You don't see different people's colors, different languages.
You see one rock with the entirety of all that we are. Yeah, it's always been here, and you can look at the whole thing. And so it was really cool because this was written in '67. So it's cool that they really leaned into that whole side of it, where we're exploring this for everyone. We're trying to do things for everyone. And then they also talk about some of the problems that are arising even now because the amount of junk. And,
Yeah, and
I think
was
that's
part
why
of-
they went in a spin-off episode too.
Because there's so much to talk about. Because that was part of in the treaty, and in fact, we broke the treaty, but we like kind of weaseled around it when we did the Space Needles thing. Which,
Yeah.
if you haven't listened to the episode, and you don't know what we're talking about. We actually talked about this before when we talked about an episode on space junk. What show was that we were talking about?
What show was that?
Was it a Radiolab? It may have been Radiolab. I'm
Maybe,
not sure.
Maybe.
We'll
We'll confirm that.
We were reviewing a show that was talking about space junk, and that's where we learned about these needles that we sent up in space, and they were supposed to be like antennas, radio antennas, or something.
Yeah,
was the concept?
Yeah, the idea is that you put like a web of things that can all like communicate with each other, and then you have.
Concept wasn't bad. However, the science behind in just a little bit they'll just fall and burn up in the atmosphere. And go
that
away.
is the premise, and it was inaccurate.
It was not accurate, and they're still floating around in space, going like thousands of miles per hour, and are now part of a giant junkyard that is our orbit.
No, and this all makes me want to find a way to be the first space junker. Just go get junk out of space and charge people for it. It's like, I'll go do this, but you pay me, because then it'd be two birds, one stone. I'm making money, and also we can actually leave the planet still, because at some point I think that's what they were talking about. Is like there's so much that it becomes a danger to try and go through like low Earth orbit where it's stuck in orbit because there's just stuff everywhere.
I mean, it's bad enough. We learned that it's bad enough now that to launch a rocket into space, you have to find a window. Like, it's that bad now. I mean, it's not horrible. It can get way worse. But the fact that it's already that bad, luckily, I feel like we're going in the direction where we are knowing more and hopefully being more responsible. I say that, and then we find out, China blows one of their satellites up, and it basically makes just as many pieces of debris, if not more, and larger pieces.
That is a hilarious solution to like, we need to decommission this satellite. Blow it up. Get that thing out of here.
I mean, I don't know what the other solution would be other than just let it come down and plow into something.
I think that is kind of part of it.
But that was definitely probably not the most elegant of solutions. Just blow it up.
No, that's fair. It's not.
But yeah, so actually, I would recommend listening to their other episode about space junk, because it is a good episode. I mean, I learned a lot on that. They talked about, what was it, the Kelvin effect or something like that, which is a lot to do with space junk and when, things will start falling back to Earth or when we'll basically be trapped inside of our own atmosphere.
Yeah.
And stuff like that.
And that's not a great solution for us.
No, it's probably not.
So we're going to have to fight through that. But yeah, this is a really fun show. If you're interested in just hearing some people explain things that you didn't know that you needed to know about, you do. Because Kirk just told you 5 different episodes, so apparently he's gone on a deep dive. He's into the show now, and I mean, I think it's the farts episode. That's what won him over.
I will say that's not the first episode I listened to.
He says that now while we're recording. No, okay, what was the first episode?
Space Law.
Okay.
Because it looked interesting. I heard about the farts one on a later episode where they're like, have you ever told anybody in your family about this podcast? I'm like, yeah, I told my uncle, and he listened to the farts episode. And I'm like, wait, there's a farts episode?
Oh, wait, what? No, but
I think I immediately paused that one and went to
it's like, no. Priority 1 has just been set. There's a farts episode. No, but it's a really good show. It's really funny. You learn a lot. It's just a good show.
And it's fun. It's an indie show, so go out, support indie podcasts. There's a million podcasts out there, but there's some really good stuff being made by independent artists like ourselves and other people like them, like Dexplanations. So throw them a like, throw them a review, listen to them. Let's spread the love.
Yeah, absolutely. That was a great recommendation. It was a really fun show.
So that brings us to this next week's recommendation, and that is, this one is a pretty big show. I know that it's got a lot of following, and it took me a long time to actually listen to my first episode, and now I'm worried that I found another show that I have to binge listen to every freaking episode.
No, that's a good thing, though.
It is a good thing.
It's exciting time to be like, I need to listen to all of this.
Because it's right up my alley. It's a storytelling podcast. I would say it's like a mix between Risk, which we've talked about, and
Watch Live recorded.
Snap Judgment. Yeah, we did get to watch it live, which was amazing. But the name of the show is The Moth. And the episode that I'm recommending is The Moth Radio Hour, and it's very long, War, Barbie Dreamhouse, Coco, and a Nekkid Man.
I like how it has to be naked like Rhett and Link.
Once you listen to it, you'll get it.
No, I understand. I'm sure he says it like naked. But yeah, sounds great.
So thanks for listening, guys.
And remember,
there's always more to discover.